This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and today we embark on the first of 4 special Culture Crawl interviews, which will spotlight the artists who are going to appear at Jazz Under the Stars. These will air on the radio the Friday before their concert appearance, and of course videos will be up on YouTube and Facebook as always. So say hi to Dan Moore, who opens Jazz Under the Stars on Thursday, August 6th with a trio that we'll talk about in a minute.
Great. Save the best for first.
Exactly. That's my words exactly when I was putting the gig together. Dan is the chair of the percussion department at the University of Iowa. So first off, before we talk about the gig, tell me what's going on as you guys continue to really kind of to deal with the aftermath of the flood and being scattered around campus over the last few years. And I know you're real excited about the new music building, which is coming together near downtown Iowa City. So give us the state of the department.
Absolutely, Dennis. Man, I tell you, the feeling in Iowa City is one of excitement. It's really great excitement. Maybe not even just for the music building. It's just the amount of building and growth that's going on there with the Hansel Auditorium, the music building, the new art building, the Children's Hospital. There's just so much activity. It's very, very exciting. And of course, we're extremely excited about the School of Music. Our location is going to be right downtown on Clinton and Burlington. It's the heart of the city. We anticipate that it'll become the cultural heart of the city of Iowa City. And the building is just going up, up, up. And I've been in, I think, 3 times now, and each time it's even more amazing about how this thing is coming together. People always ask me, have you had input into building the building and all this and that and the other? And we absolutely have. The architects sat down with every area and asked us what we needed and what we wanted, and we worked with them, and they worked really hard with us to try to get exactly what we need for this building. You'd never wish for a flood. You'd never wish for something horrible like that to happen, and I wouldn't ever want to go through it again, for sure. But the real blessing has been that this building is going to be spectacular. It's not going to be spectacular for Iowa City, for the state of Iowa. It's going to be spectacular for the country. I mean, it's people are going to, if you build a music building in the next 10 years, you're going to visit Iowa City to look at ours first, because it's just such a beautiful building.
Well, I'm sure you can hardly wait to get everybody together and back on the main campus.
We are excited
for the first time in years.
We don't even talk in terms of years anymore. We talk in terms of it's two more semesters. So after 2 semesters, we'll be in our new building.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's shift gears now and talk a little bit about Dan the musician. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you first got interested in playing and teaching professionally, and then also tell me about of course you're as the percussion chair. We automatically think drums, but of course your primary instrument is vibes and marimba. So tell me how that all came together.
Well, I am a percussionist with a capital P. I do it all.
Sure, of course you do.
I started out in life as a drummer, as the snare drummer and the drum set guy, and I've just always been excited about drums and percussion. And, I was too little to play football, and I was too short to play basketball, and I was afraid of having small objects hurled at me. So I wasn't very good with the sports at all. So I got into band and got on the drums, and, and girls thought that was cool. Girls thought the drums were cool, and so I thought this is good.
I made the right career choice.
I made the right career choice on that one. So I just sort of kept at it. Started out as a drum set player and was really excited about playing drums. And of course, growing up in the '70s, there were a lot of great drummers out there to emulate the Steve Gadds and the Dave Garibaldis and Buddy. Of course, I was a big Buddy Rich fan, and I was a big Mel Lewis fan, and Gene Krupa and all those things. So I was, growing up in the coming of age in the '60s and '70s, there was it was a really great time because there were great jazzy bands out there like Blood, Sweat, and Tears and Chicago, and I was a huge fan.
Pop bands that incorporated jazz and had more texture than your normal pop song.
Absolutely, and had those jazz guys, Blood, Sweat, and Tears had Lou Soloff, the late trumpeter, playing in that band, and later on I had the opportunity to work with him, and it was like, yeah, this is.
I often say the first time I ever heard Wayne Shorter was on a Steely Dan record.
It was on a Steely Dan, and Steely Dan is another one. A lot of great musicians on those records, and so it was just it was a really cool, great time to be a drummer, and grew up in Texas, and so I played everything from country to rhythm and blues, Dixieland, jazz, and I was a big band drummer. I loved playing drums in big band, and still, if there's anybody out there that needs a drummer for their big band, I'd come sit in with any day of the week. And so I got to went to college on a percussion scholarship, and promptly didn't make any bands. And so I thought,
because there were all these drummers,
all these great drummers.
Everybody wanted to be a drummer.
In the 70s, everybody wanted to be a drummer, and there were like I said, there were a lot of good ones out there. So somehow I got moved over to the mallet instruments, and I sort of taught myself piano as a kid, and never had any formal training on keyboard or anything like that. And so I was really discovering the mallet instruments when I got to college, and was fortunate enough to get into a program that would help to kind of nurture me along. I kind of like to joke that the program where I teach now, I would not have gotten into. So I went to the right, got into the right school at Texas A&M Commerce, and they kind of got me go in the right direction, start playing mallet instruments, and I just really fell in love with the vibes and the marimba, and of course, then that's when I learned about Gary Burton and Mike Manieri, and that got even more depressing.
Because there are all these great vibes players.
Because there are all these great vibes players. There weren't as many of them, but they were really amazing. And so I think for me, that has been what I've always done. I've never ever compared myself to my peers. I've never compared myself to the people in my row or in my class, or I compared myself to Gary Burton and Bobby Hutcherson and Mike Manieri, who became a mentor of mine. And it can be depressing when you compare yourself at that. That high
you're never done practicing when you do that.
You're never done practicing, but it has really helped me to do the things that I want to do as a musician.
Well, I kid you sometimes, because we don't see you playing out very often in the area, because you are often touring and playing out of the country. So tell me about playing some of these big festivals and traveling. And I know you played a lot in South America and Europe.
A lot in South America and Japan, toured China. I've been just very fortunate. When I came to Iowa, I was able to meet a lot of other great musicians, and I've had the opportunity to play and perform with some of the best drummers and musicians in the world, really. And I've just been really lucky in that way. And so by the time I got to Iowa City in 1996, the international percussion festival and music festival scene was really starting to open up. And so I started getting these calls to go to Patagonia and Argentina and Uruguay and just all over. And it was a really great experience to be able to bring my music. And what I would do is I would just go and I would take the tunes that I like to play and take it to all these different musicians and get different reads on it. And I think that's why I like different settings. And we talked earlier about the last time I was here in Cedar Rapids, I was playing with the Raleigh Daily Trio. So
yeah, that was the first Friday.
It was the first Friday.
It was a great night.
And it was a quartet setting with a pianist, and it was very kind of cool sound. And then I also am working with this trio now, where it's just very energetic and.
Yeah, well, while we're there, tell me about the trio that you're bringing to Jazz Under the Stars.
Well, I'm bringing a couple of guys from Chicago. Victor Bastidas is a Colombian percussionist and drum set player. Just outstanding, just great chops, great ears, very musical player. You got to stay on your toes with somebody like that. And the bass player is Wesley Morgan, and Wes and I work together up in Door County, Wisconsin, every summer at the Birch Creek Music Performance Center up there. Play a couple weeks of shows up there with them every year. So, it seemed like a great opportunity to do Jazz Under the Stars and bring these guys to Iowa City. Neither one of them have ever been to Iowa City before.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Always love to have new cats coming into town and getting a chance to see our scene.
It's great fun, yeah. So coming to Cedar Rapids and doing Jazz Under the Stars, it's always a good crowd, and people up here like the music, and they are good audiences, so why not?
Tell me a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about repertoire, because you did the last recorded thing that we have is the Misfit Toys release, which was, definitely a different list of covers. Not exactly the standard jazz repertoire.
Well,
let's put it that way.
I probably stay about as far away from the standard jazz repertoire as you can possibly get. This started to happen for me in the 90s. Of course, I'm pedigreed as a jazz musician, and I play jazz standards, and I know Stella by Starlight and All of Me and all those tunes, the Great American Songbook, and we all cut our teeth on that. And there was a sax player named Kenny G. If you remember that name.
Yeah, I think we know who that is.
None of the jazz musicians liked him, and he was popular, and he sold a lot of records. And I think one of the things that people don't understand is what they didn't like about him is his attitude about jazz standards. He said, I don't like jazz standards, and I don't need jazz standards. And I think that rubbed a lot of jazz musicians the wrong way. So I grew up playing those tunes, a lot of the standard tunes and the standard real book songs and those kinds of things. And so I think you have to cut your teeth on these things, and you have to understand this music, and you have to understand that repertoire. But for me, they weren't my standards, and so I think, what is a standard? How do you define a standard? And to me, it always said it's the music you like. And it's the music that you like to play. And so I've always been attracted to playing on tunes that I like. And I don't care if it's the Doobie Brothers or an American folk song or a Japanese folk song. I don't care. I'll play on it. So for me, I think my repertoire comes from my personal tastes, and I grew up in
it's the music it's the music we grew up with.
That's right.
You and I are about the same age,
right?
So just about everything you play hits me right where I live. And I know it. And of course, on the Misfit Toys, there was Blood, Sweat, and Tears in there. There was a Chicago in there. Bless the Beasts and the Children, which was a tune I had not heard that one in a long time. And then live, you did a Beatles medley that just was outstanding. So.
And this trio does the Beatles medley too.
Oh, excellent!
So
excellent. Dennis will be happy.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good. I'm glad. For me, the interesting thing is that I've had this one chart that was done for me on the Beatles, and it's a collection, a string of the Beatles tunes put together, and I played this thing all over the world. And what is really interesting to me is every musician you work with knows this music,
no matter where they are from. What their background is.
You can play
it behind the Iron Curtain.
You can play it in Japan. You can play it in China. You can play it in South America. These people know this music, and it speaks to them.
And that's what makes us. That's what does make a song a standard, whether it's a part of the Great American Songbook or not.
That's right.
Talking with Dan Moore, whose trio is going to lead off Jazz Under the Stars on Thursday, August 6th, this upcoming Thursday, and just really looking forward to having you in Cedar Rapids and kicking this great series off. I've planned for good weather.
Yep.
And, of course, we'll be having a little reception beforehand for KCCK donors, and you get a chance to meet the members of the band there as well as enjoy some munchies before we start things off. So,
great.
Dan, thanks so much again for kicking off our series, and we're really looking forward to a great evening of music on the 6th. Thank
you, Dennis, and thank you for you and KCCK for all your support of live music. And I just don't know what the jazz scene in Iowa City and in the corridor would be without you guys. So, thanks so much.
Well, it's it's our blessing and our mission to be able to do it. I always call it a three-legged stool. You've got our music schools,
right?
Both from colleges and K-12,
sure,
who do such a great job in music education. Then you've got our live scene with our musicians who are out playing,
right?
And then I like to think KCCK is the other leg of that stool.
Absolutely.
And because of those three things, we've got a vibrant musical culture.
Well, we appreciate it and keep it going.
Looking forward to it. We'll see you on Thursday.
Thanks.